You know that feeling when the ground just disappears beneath your feet? When everything you've worked for, every late night, every sacrifice, every moment you chose your career over your personal life, it all becomes meaningless in a single sentence? That's exactly what happened to me. My name is Sarah, and for 15 years, I gave my soul to a company that I believed valued loyalty, hard work, and results. I started as a junior analyst right out of college. Back then, I was hungry, eager to prove myself. I learned everything from scratch. I mastered Excel like it was my second language. I built financial models that saved the company millions. I automated processes that used to take weeks and turned them into tasks that took hours. I wasn't just good at my job. I was exceptional. My boss, Margaret, knew this. She'd call me into her office at least twice a week with that same smile. "Sarah, I don't know what I'd do without you," she'd say. And I believed her. I genuinely believed that my hard work would be recognized, that loyalty would be rewarded. But here's what I didn't know. Here's what I was too blind to see. Margaret didn't value excellence. She valued friendship. Specifically, friendship with people from her church community. And that's where Jennifer came in. Jennifer joined our team about 3 years ago. She was nice enough, I suppose, always smiling, always talking about church events, always bringing Margaret homemade cookies. But here's the thing that nobody wanted to say out loud. Jennifer was completely incompetent. I'm not exaggerating. This woman had been working in our department for 3 years, and she still couldn't create a basic Excel spreadsheet. She didn't understand formulas. She didn't know how to use pivot tables. She would call me to her desk at least 5 times a day, asking me to fix her mistakes, to redo her work, to essentially do her job for her. And I did it, because that's what team players do, right? That's what Margaret always said. A family, that word makes me sick now. But let me tell you about the day that changed everything. It was a Tuesday morning, exactly 3 months ago. Margaret called an emergency team meeting. We all gathered in the conference room, wondering what was so urgent. The quarterly reports weren't due yet. We hadn't lost any major clients. What could it be? Margaret stood at the head of the table, beaming with that bright smile of hers. "I have wonderful news to share with everyone," she announced. "After careful consideration, I've decided to promote someone to senior financial manager." My heart started racing. This was it. This was the moment I'd been working toward for 15 years. I straightened in my chair, preparing to accept with grace and humility. "I'm so pleased to announce that Jennifer will be taking on this new role. Let's all congratulate her." The room erupted in polite applause. But I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I sat there, frozen, watching Jennifer stand up with tears of joy in her eyes, hugging Margaret like they'd just won the lottery together. And that's when I realized something that would change my life forever. Hard work means nothing. Excellence means nothing. 15 years of dedication means nothing when you're not part of the right circle. The days after that announcement were torture. Pure, unfiltered torture. I watched as Jennifer moved into the corner office that should have been mine. I watched as she struggled to understand the basic responsibilities of her new position. I watched as Margaret continued to praise her, continued to protect her, continued to pretend that this promotion made any sense at all. But here's what pushed me over the edge. 2 weeks after her promotion, Jennifer called me into her new office. My old work was piling up because now I had to cover her previous responsibilities on top of my own. I was exhausted, running on coffee and rage, barely sleeping. "Sarah," she said sweetly, gesturing to her computer screen. "I need your help with something." I walked behind her desk and looked at the screen. She had been trying to create a quarterly financial report. The same report I'd been creating flawlessly for over a decade. The same report that was literally the foundation of a senior financial manager's job. It was a disaster. Numbers in the wrong columns, formulas that made no mathematical sense, charts that displayed completely incorrect data. It wasn't just bad. It was dangerous. If this report went to the board, it could have led to catastrophically wrong business decisions. "Can you fix this for me?" she asked, as if she was asking me to pass the salt. "Margaret needs it by tomorrow morning." Something inside me snapped, not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, like the last thread of a rope finally giving way. "Jennifer," I said calmly, "you've been in this department for 3 years. You've just been promoted to senior manager. This is literally your job. How can you not do this?" Her smile faltered. "Well, I'm still learning the technical parts. Margaret says I bring other valuable skills to the role." "What skills?" I couldn't help myself. The question just came out. She looked uncomfortable. "People skills, leadership, vision." Leadership? I could feel my voice rising, but I didn't care anymore. You can't even lead your own Excel spreadsheet to display accurate data. She stood up, her face turning red. You don't have to be so mean about it, Sarah. We're supposed to be a team. Margaret says a lot of things, I interrupted. But what Margaret does is promote her church friends over qualified employees who've dedicated their entire careers to this company. Jennifer's eyes widened. You're just jealous. And maybe I was. Maybe jealousy was part of it. But it wasn't just jealousy. It was injustice. It was betrayal. It was the crushing realization that merit meant nothing in the face of personal connections. I fixed her report that night. I stayed until midnight, correcting every error, rebuilding every formula, making sure the company wouldn't suffer because of her incompetence. But as I saved that final file, I made a decision. I wasn't going to keep carrying her. I wasn't going to keep pretending this was normal. I wasn't going to keep sacrificing my dignity for a company that clearly didn't value what I brought to the table. The next morning, I walked into Margaret's office and I said 5 words that felt both terrifying and liberating. I need to resign. Immediately. Margaret looked shocked. Sarah, you can't be serious. You're our best analyst. Exactly, I said. Your best analyst, but apparently not good enough to be your senior manager. Now, I know what you're thinking. Walking away isn't really revenge, is it? It's just leaving. And you're right. If my story ended there, it would be unsatisfying for both of us. But here's where things get interesting. When I resigned, Margaret panicked. She tried to convince me to stay. She offered me a raise. She promised me that my time would come, that there would be future opportunities, but her words were empty, and we both knew it. I gave them a standard 2 weeks' notice, which was more generous than they deserved. But I had my reasons. During those 2 weeks, I was going to do something that would expose exactly how much the company depended on me. See, over 15 years, I had created something remarkable. I had built an entire ecosystem of automated systems, financial models, and processes that kept our department running smoothly. These weren't standard company tools. These were custom-built solutions that I had developed on my own time, using my own expertise. And here's the beautiful part. They were all password protected. They were all tied to my personal login credentials, and they were all documented in files that only I had access to. I know what you're thinking. That sounds unethical, maybe even illegal. But let me be clear. These were tools I created independently. They weren't in my job description. They were additional systems I built because I cared about efficiency and excellence. The company never asked for the source codes or documentation. They just happily used them without ever thinking about what would happen if I left. During my final 2 weeks, I watched carefully. I documented everything. I watched Jennifer struggle with tasks that my automated systems had been handling. I watched her call IT support multiple times a day. I watched Margaret grow increasingly stressed as she realized that her golden child had no idea how to actually do the job. But I didn't say anything. I didn't offer to help. I didn't volunteer information. On my last day, HR asked me for a transition meeting. They wanted documentation of all my processes and systems. I smiled politely and handed them a folder. Inside was documentation for the standard, company-owned processes that anyone could find in our shared drives. What about the financial modeling system? The HR manager asked. The automated reporting tools? The forecasting algorithms? Those were personal projects I developed on my own time, I said calmly. They're not company property. The room went silent. Margaret, who had been sitting in the corner, suddenly looked very pale. But we need those systems, she stammered. The entire department runs on them. Then I suggest you hire someone who can rebuild them, I replied, or train your senior financial manager to create her own solutions. I walked out of that building with my head held high, carrying a box with my personal belongings and 15 years of invaluable knowledge that they had taken for granted. But the revenge didn't stop there. Over the next few weeks, I watched from a distance as everything began to fall apart. I had friends still working there who kept me updated. Reports that used to take hours now took days. Financial forecasts that used to be accurate were now filled with errors. Jennifer was working 16-hour days just to accomplish what my automated systems used to do in minutes. And the board started asking questions. Important, uncomfortable questions about why their financial department's efficiency had suddenly dropped by 70%. Margaret was scrambling. Jennifer was crying at her desk daily. The department was in complete chaos. And I was just getting started. 3 months after I left, I received a phone call that made me smile for the first time in weeks. It was Robert, the chief financial officer. We'd always had a good professional relationship, but he'd been traveling internationally during my resignation and hadn't been involved in the decision to promote Jennifer over me. "Sarah," he said, and I could hear the exhaustion in his voice. "I need to talk to you about something. Can we meet for coffee?" We met at a neutral location, a quiet cafe downtown. Robert looked like he'd aged 5 years in 3 months. He ordered a black coffee and got straight to the point. "I had no idea what Margaret did," he began. "I was reviewing the quarterly reports from the past 3 months, and something didn't add up. When I started digging deeper, I discovered that our department's efficiency has completely collapsed since you left." I sipped my coffee and waited. I wasn't going to make this easy for him. "The board is furious," he continued. "We've missed 3 critical reporting deadlines. We've had to hire 2 temporary contractors just to cover basic functions, and the quality of our financial analysis has dropped so dramatically that we're making business decisions based on flawed data." "That sounds like a management problem," I said calmly. Robert winced. "It is, and I'm here to admit that. Margaret made a terrible decision. She prioritized personal relationships over competence, and it's cost us dearly." "So why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I want to offer you your job back, as senior financial manager, with a 40% salary increase, full benefits, and a direct reporting line to me, instead of Margaret." I let that offer hang in the air for a moment. 3 months ago, this was everything I wanted. This was justice. This was validation. But here's what I realized during my time away. I didn't want to go back. Not because I was bitter, but because I had discovered something better. "Robert, I appreciate the offer," I said, "but I need to be honest with you. I've spent the last 3 months building something of my own. I've started a consulting business, specializing in financial automation and process optimization, and I already have 3 corporate clients who value my expertise and pay me more than your 40% increase would have." His eyes widened. "You've started your own business?" "I have, and it's thriving. Turns out, when you're actually valued for your skills instead of being taken for granted, amazing things happen. But here's where the revenge gets really sweet. However," I continued, "I am willing to consult for your company. My rate is $300 per hour, with a minimum contract of 3 months to rebuild the systems I created. I'll train your team on how to maintain them, and I'll create comprehensive documentation so you never face this problem again." Robert looked like he wanted to argue, but he couldn't. He knew they had no other option. The company was hemorrhaging money and credibility every day those systems remained broken. "I'll need to discuss this with the board," he said. "Of course. Take your time," I replied, standing up. "But, just so you know, I have 2 other companies interested in my services. If you want to secure my availability, you'll need to decide quickly." 2 days later, I had a signed contract. $300 per hour, 20 hours per week for 3 months. I would be making more as a part-time consultant than I ever made as a full-time employee. And here's the final, beautiful detail. I would be training Jennifer on how to use the systems I created. The student was about to become the teacher. And oh, how sweet that reversal felt. The first day I walked back into that building as a consultant was surreal. I wasn't an employee anymore. I was a vendor. I had power now. Leverage. Respect. Jennifer sat across from me in the training room, looking exhausted and defeated. Her corner office was gone. Margaret had been demoted to a different department after the board investigated the disastrous promotion decision. The entire landscape had shifted. "Thank you for doing this," Jennifer said quietly. "I know you have every right to hate me, and here's the thing. I didn't hate her anymore. Hate requires energy, and I had none left to waste on resentment." "Jennifer, I don't hate you," I said honestly. "But I do want you to understand something. You were promoted for the wrong reasons, not because of your skills, not because of your merit, but because of your friendship with Margaret. And that didn't just hurt me. It hurt you too." She looked up, tears forming in her eyes. "I know. I was so excited about the promotion that I didn't stop to think if I was actually ready for it. These past 3 months have been a nightmare." "Then let me teach you," I said. "Not because I owe you anything, but because excellence should be the standard. And maybe, if you actually learn these skills, you'll earn the position you were given." Over the next 3 months, I rebuilt everything. I trained Jennifer and 2 other team members on financial modeling, automation, and process optimization. I created documentation so comprehensive that even a complete beginner could follow it. And something unexpected happened. Jennifer actually became competent. She worked harder than I'd ever seen anyone work. She stayed late, asked thoughtful questions, and genuinely tried to improve. She was never going to be exceptional, but she became adequate. And adequate was honest. As for Margaret, she eventually left the company. The board's investigation revealed a pattern of favoritism and poor management decisions. Her reputation was destroyed, and she couldn't recover from it. But the most important change happened to me. My consulting business exploded. That first contract led to recommendations. Those recommendations led to more clients. Within 6 months, I had more work than I could handle and had to hire 2 employees of my own. I built something that was mine. Something that couldn't be taken away by someone's church friend or personal bias. Something based purely on merit, skill, and value. So here's what I learned from this entire experience. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, it's transformation. It's taking what was meant to break you and using it to build something better. Margaret thought she was doing Jennifer a favor by promoting her. Instead, she set her up for public failure and ultimately destroyed her own career. I thought my career was over when I wasn't promoted. Instead, it was just beginning. The system that undervalued me? It collapsed without me. The company that took me for granted? They now pay premium rates for my expertise. And me? I'm thriving in ways I never imagined possible. Because here's the final truth. Your worth isn't determined by people who can't see your value. Your power isn't in staying where you're underappreciated. Your revenge isn't in destruction. It's in walking away, building something extraordinary, and showing them exactly what they lost when they chose mediocrity over excellence. That's the revenge that lasts forever.